So what I usually like to do with my sessions, there's one rule. And the rule is we need to have fun together because it's Friday, it's lunchtime. Maybe some of you are eating, some of you are getting ready for lunch. So that's the one thing that we're going to agree on it. So while I am sharing, I'm going to start sharing my screen. The other thing that I always would like to do is keep it very interactive. I see we're a small, intimate group of 16 people, so I think we can share a lot in this 1 hour. So as I am starting to share the screen, maybe I would just throw a first question out there. What do you know about Uruguay? If you know anything. So you can start writing in the chat, and I'm going to share my screen. All right, let's see. Latin America, basically nothing. Great wine, fantastic. Capital Montevideo, awesome. Couple of more. Hola, hola, ¿cómo estás? My Spanish is not as good as you might think, but I'm trying. North of Argentina, cool. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you. So yes, it is one of the smallest countries in South America, and it's a very interesting country because it's essentially situated right between the two large, so to say, monster countries, Brazil and Argentina. A very interesting place because it is often overlooked by travelers, by the large companies, by tourists. But there are a lot of very interesting things happening in Uruguay. And what I thought I would do today, I would just start telling you a little bit about the innovation and technology side of it. So this is the country in South America that actually has the highest number of programmers per capita. So if you are looking for an engineering programming job and you would go to Uruguay, you would probably have like 10 offers within the first week. So very, very high number and very high demand. There is, if anybody knows what does D9 is, so D9 is the world's most advanced nations, and there are 9 countries that are part of those nations, and Uruguay is one of them. The other interesting thing is that this is one of the first countries in the world that created the free laptop per child. So every child in the country has an access to the laptop, and it's called Plan Ceibal. And of course, they have fantastic wine, and of course, they have fantastic barbecue. And they always joke that they have more. They have about 8 cows per every person that lives there. So that's like that's Uruguay. So now let's start. Let's see, next slide. Okay. So what I would like to do today is tell you about Pixas and tell you what the company is. It's a relatively young company. It's 11 years old. But I would like to share with you the story of how it was created, how it prioritized other things that usually the companies do, put a different emphasis on how to generate value and profit. How it all comes out in the projects and the way we work, what happened during the COVID, and what does it mean, right? Humanize the digital, and how actually those things are helping us to generate profit. Now I'm throwing out the next question here. Does anybody know what word Pixis mean? Sorry. So Pixas is a Latin word, and in Latin, Pixas means mariner's compass, which is why I have the picture of the compass here. So the idea of this company is we show those who come to us the way. So this was the whole genesis of creating this company. So what I would like to do is now talk a little bit about how traditionally the companies are formed. They are formed to generate revenue, to grow business, to create value by delivering services, products, and so on and so forth. Interestingly enough, the company was created first of all to have a healthy ecosystem. So the story of an organization is those were three friends that were working for large corporations with insane amount of hours, the burnouts, the go, go, go. Sounds familiar? Sounds very familiar. So they decided to create a place where actually people would enjoy their work. They knew that they will be working in technology, but they did not have a specific idea. Technology, what they knew, and they wanted to create an ecosystem. And they knew that they wanted to be very, very strongly present in the community where they do the work and how they work. So that was the genesis of it in 2009. So let's see how they applied it. So interestingly, when you cannot separate your mission from the way you run your operations, right? When you say the word sustainability, sometimes those words are appearing on the websites, those are appearing in the press releases, and that's where it ends, right? Or there is a dedicated day to be sustainable, and then the rest of the year companies do everything else. And that really doesn't work that way, right? It's not an on and off switch. Usually, if you really say that you put people before profit, so this is the way that Pixas is run, then it really has to be manifested in the products, in the services, in your interactions, in your visual materials, and in the culture. So unless it really touches on all the parts of the organizational behavior, organizational work, it would not work. And that's how this company started. I put here also the definition what are the triple impact companies, because essentially without really understanding it, the way Pixas started and the way it started operating, it started leading towards becoming a triple impact company, right? And what are those companies? These are those that seek to generate not only economic benefits but also create social and environmental value for the communities they're in. And then I will give you a few examples of how I think this works. So I chose a few projects from a very, very large portfolio. So yeah, I mentioned it's a technology company. And this is one of a very interesting projects that we did together with the government of Uruguay. So a few years ago, dengue fever was very prevalent in Uruguay and in South America. And the government approached us to see if we would help them raise an awareness campaign, which would be in a fun way. So this mosquito that you see here, the mosquito was actually a chatbot that would crawl through all the different parts of the different social media, on Twitter, on Instagram, where people are looking to book a hotel, where people are looking to interactions, the areas where they would need to be flagged about the dengue and then how they should be careful. And this was a one way to raise the awareness. Worked really well, A, because it was fun and it was done in a very non-invasive way, B, because the government was behind it, and C, because there was a technology company working to deliver it, right? And those are the projects that usually would really be successful, because it's never just one, right? So if we would come and say, okay, well, we think there is a problem with dengue, let's do something on our own, probably the reach of it would have been completely different than when it is than how it was when we worked with the collaboration, with the support of the government. So let's go to the next one. This is another thing. One other area which Uruguay is very interestingly very advanced is the government. So the government is digitally very innovative and very advanced. It's, I believe, one of the first governments in the world that actually introduced machine learning as part of their services, as part of their adopted things of they would bring into their projects. And what you see here is essentially they wanted to improve the public transportation. So what they haven't done is using computer vision techniques, which are cameras, which are recording number of people. They are recording, I see a chat. Maybe let me just take a look if somebody says something. Oh, no, that's not. Let's go back. and we developed an app. And interestingly enough, again, here we see that the community, people themselves engage because they know that this is actually going towards something, that this is actually improving. So this is just another example of how to think about the projects that are generating value, right? And it has the digital component, it has your stakeholders, it has the people who are receiving the services, and then it has a common benefit. Something completely different. So Jose Enrique Rodrguez was a very famous Uruguayan essayist who produced thousands of very valuable manuscripts and essays. And very recently, we worked with the National Library to digitize all of those manuscripts. Now, if this would have been done manually, then probably this would have taken 10 plus years of the manual work, right? And then here, what are we doing? We are preserving the national heritage. We're helping the library, which does not have the digital services, and you're helping the community. And there is not one right or wrong way to think about those projects, but I wanted to throw out a few examples of what the sustainable project could look like and how they make a difference for the society. Okay, so community work. So from day one, this is another part where a lot of times I face the companies and they say, okay, well, I need to be in the business for X number of years. We need to generate X number of revenue, and then we can think about the sustainability, and then we can think about the sustainable projects. And we did it very differently, or I was not there at that time, but from day one, the community was part of the operation. So from day one, they had sustainable projects. And they said that it starts at home. So the very first sustainable project in the company was the zero waste. So the first time I visited Uruguay, I walked into the offices and I saw all the different bins, how they were categorized. And it was unbelievable how employees themselves would make sure that it is sorted out properly, that it is done properly. And that goes back to one of my previous slides, that you need to walk the talk and you need to believe it from inside before going outside. I listed here a couple of sustainable projects that we have. One of the age groups around the world, this is a global phenomenon, is people with 50 plus. So when they are losing their jobs, it's very, very hard for them these days to find something new. And there is a lot of cliches, there's a lot of stereotypes, there's a lot of preconditions, but market is very reluctant to hire them. And we see a lot of situations when these people are struggling, looking for years. So we have a program where we train people 50 plus on certain IT skills, mostly in the QA area. They're easy to learn, they're fun, and you can be integrated very quickly into ongoing projects, and there is a huge demand. And it's an extremely successful program where the minute they graduate, they are already being placed into the companies. And we have several partnerships with other companies where we say, okay, this is part of our contribution to the society. We would train them and then they would hire them. Some of them also end up working with us. Iruka is an app that has been developed by us. This is in Japanese, it means dolphin. So I think one of the developers just wanted to name it Iruka, and that's how it came. This is essentially for parents whose children have disabilities. And usually those people have tremendous amount of coordination to bring these children to the therapy sessions, to the treatments, to all sorts of different other types of activities where they need to be part of it. And we realize that there is nothing in the market that actually allows them to simplify that, to have the schedules, to have all the medical records. And this is the app that was developed for them. Number of training and internships for this is now a completely different group of population. I was speaking about 50 plus. There are many underprivileged groups in Uruguay where kids just don't have capability to afford to go to school, to pay for the education. And the picture here on the right is this young kid that he was about 15, 16 when we offered him internship and training. And it was unbelievable how suddenly you realize the potential that he had. He had all the potential, but he just did not have the skills. And now he's actually working with us, and his story made it to the local newspapers and all of it. And of course, the goal is not to make him the star and put him into the newspapers. The goal is to change just one more life. There are many, many programs. I thought I'll just pick a few which are diverse and yet give them overview of the types of the community work. Happy to answer like questions and tell more of it if you'd like. Now I would like to move towards the next area and talk a little bit about the visuals and the marketing. So we all know we need to do the marketing, and especially in this world and this digital world. And how do we traditionally think about the marketing, right? The companies need to do campaigns, we need to do events, we need to do the webinars, lead gen activities, and so on and so forth. Sometimes successful, sometimes not so successful, because it can be overwhelming. We all wake up to like feeds and feeds of advertising. Now, the approach that we have at Pixas, mostly, I mean, of course, we have to do some of the above, the traditional things, but I would say 80 to 90% our work becomes our marketing. And the work speaks for itself. Now, before I move to the next slide, I recently was reading this incredible book which promotes the taking time off and working offline. And one of the things they shared there is, a couple of years ago, Chief Branding Officer of P&G cut down 200 million marketing budget for all the social media advertising activities. 200 million. And guess how much difference it made? Zero. So, of course, you know, you could throw back the thought that it's easy to do when you are P&G, but I could also say that there is a way to get there. I don't think like anybody, when I meet somebody and I say Pixas, people are like, yeah, okay, you know, don't know anything. And 15 minutes later into the conversation, usually people are interested to learn more because you're just doing your work slightly differently. So to show an example of how your work can become your marketing is a couple of years ago, this is in Barcelona at the Smart City conference that Montevideo was chosen as one of the finalists, for the city with equity, inclusion, and environmental sustainability. And some of the projects that I was showing you before for the improving the public transportation, improving the services, really doing a hard work in raising the awareness. There are a few other things where we help to clean the city, where you have the cameras and they track how the garbage is being disposed, and if there's too much, then they add additional bins and so on and so forth. But for many of those facts, this actually became the city. And of course, I don't have to explain, right, that this became an incredible marketing tool, because right away you are the work speaks for itself. Okay, I think I have chat. Let's just look into this here. Okay. Is sustainability a requirement for project selection acceptance? So I will answer it now, but I think we agreed to have the questions later. You can always write it. It's absolutely not a requirement. And the way I actually approach it, the minute you make it a requirement, it becomes an obligation. So it's not a requirement, it's a desire. It's the way people live and breathe and walk the talk. So everybody is buying into the same joint purpose, and then that's how it works. And then you don't think about it as a requirement. We have a sustainability committee. They meet on a quarterly basis to vote in projects that would be carried out for the rest of the year. It's completely open. Some people come in for a few months and then drop out, etc. But it is something that everybody loves and everybody wants to be part of. Okay. So what I would like to do now is just, you can share it or you can just think about it. I would just like to be quiet for a few seconds and have you think about a project where you really chose a cause over a profit, and what did it result in? Did it result in more marketing, better connections, better networking, more profit? It's a very, very wide range, but yeah, I'll just be quiet for a few seconds, just think about it. You can write it, you can just have it for yourself. Okay, so we can move on. Now I would like to speak about how do we actually generate value and grow our business. So on the left side, you see something that each one of us is very, very familiar. This is how we control the quality, how we control the project, scope, time, budget. On the right hand, you see something that we are using at Pixas. This is completely, so to say, homegrown or homemade. This is our invention, that we have our own triangle, and we call it the authenticity triangle of how we control the quality in our world. And you see there is trust, there is authenticity, and there is competence. And to us, those are the things that define the quality, and those are the way that we approach the projects, we approach the client relationships, we approach the quality of our work, and the results are just unbelievable. And that doesn't mean that we don't have budgets. That doesn't mean we don't have the timelines. That doesn't mean any of these things. It just means that we go one step further to how do we define the quality for our organization and for our clients. Okay, let's see. Okay, there's another comment. Okay, we'll come back to this later. Thank you, by the way, for all the participation. It's great. So you are, that means at least you're listening. Now, breaking down that triangle, and what does it mean, right? Trust, authenticity, competence. And here are a few things that work for us. I think there's no right or wrong. Everybody defines their formula, but it is important for us to show up. We've been in so many conversations that, you know, you say something and then, you know, next thing you know, they're not there. You show up, you deliver on your promises. The credibility and the competence in the work, I think that is one of the most important things. Then yet again, so many times I have been in meetings where you have an incredible presentation and the PowerPoint is just amazing, and then comes the part to deliver the work and then the quality is not there. So the competence needs to be always in. A lot of times we become the shoulder for our clients to lean on. So the relationship is not just we are delivering the services and you are paying us the money. It's a completely different relationship where they can come to you and they can open up in terms of the challenges, the organizational challenges, and not just say, oh, we don't have the budget, let's talk next year. You actually have a further conversation. And that leads to the authentic communication, being honest in our work. This next one is an interesting one, right? Like as a services company, it is very hard to turn down the clients because we all depend on the clients to have our operations. But if you really have the guts to walk away from the project or from the proposal that is not fitting your organizational culture, it's a very powerful feeling. It's not easy to do, again, because it hurts your bottom line, but it is an incredibly powerful feeling because then you really walk the talk of how you run your company. Long-term relationships versus one-time projects. I'm probably not saying anything new because it's so hard to develop those relationships, and as opposed to going to the short-term ones, you work with the long-term. And quality versus sales, which goes back to the earlier things about the sales. Okay, so again, another point for me to just make you think about Can you actually apply this authenticity triangle in your projects? So maybe I will take like a minute of silence, and I would actually encourage you to think it, write it here in the chat, or write it for yourself, because I use it in my work and it's a very powerful tool. So I'll just take a minute. Okay, so let's move on. So now I would like to talk about one specific case of what happened when COVID started. So March 13 last year, Uruguay had the first 4 cases that were reported. And immediately, a day later, the news channel decided that they would like to have a toll-free number that would help citizens with various areas. Access to food, access to certain services, and so on and so forth. So this is a government together with the TV channel launched initiative. Here at the bottom, you see they are announcing the number, and what happens? Within 24 hours, they get completely overwhelmed. So they had, I think, about 100,000 calls that they need to direct, and they just couldn't handle it. So they approached us to see if we would be able to build a chatbot that would direct all those queries. And you see here at the bottom, so WhatsApp is used absolutely for everything in Uruguay. Government uses it for various channels. Companies are using it, so it's a very widely used method of communication. Which, given the fact what happened a couple of days ago when we were all like cut out and suddenly realized how dependent we are, was an interesting experience. But within 2 weeks, we built a very simple chat. Well, you could do that within a couple of weeks, and that was the beginning of the of this project. And what we did further, and this was an initiative, this was an idea of our CEO, who for the last couple of years, he took a second career and he also started counseling. And what he did is, in addition to providing all those services, he also arranged with the group of psychologists to have a service where counselors would give 15-minute sessions to people who were struggling. And we all know that with lockdowns, when being alone, how many people were experiencing anxieties, depressions, and so on and so forth. And then you see here, I think numbers speak for themselves. So within 2 weeks, the chatbot was developed. There were about 90,000 messages that were being processed right away. And counselors gave over 450 hours of free counseling. And for me, this is it, right? This is the example of how every party comes together and everybody does their job. And there's no one that's better, there's no one that's worse. It really is when it is the crisis and everybody comes in and something incredible happens. And right now, what we're doing with that chatbot is, thinking, but what can be the next level? So what's happening right now is obviously the small businesses, the freelancers, they are the ones that's struggling a lot. And now that has an element of e-commerce. And then the small businesses can actually sell their services through the chat. So again, thinking about the community and how can you continue bringing that to the next level. There is also a company, and this is an example that the work never stops anywhere, and it can grow and go very far and very fast. So this is a homeless support company or NGO, nonprofit out of Barcelona. Somehow we connected with them and we realized that he has very similar services, except this is not for the community, this is for homeless people. He also started his work a lot during COVID, and we are now in conversations to actually help them to automate this with the same idea that that helpline can actually help more people. Okay, so yeah, then I would like now to go towards post-COVID and how we see the world. And this is the phrase of one of my favorite Greek writers, philosophers: we cannot change the reality, let us change the eyes by which we see the reality. And this is true, right? We every conversation or every meeting we're going in, we are in that new post-COVID paradigm. It is not going anywhere. Just before we started this session, Saskia was throwing out their thoughts of, well, how would the PMI events look in the future? Is this going to be a hybrid? Is this going to be just online? So we know that it is different. And I see the shift, the new paradigm in across many pillars. If we look into the business models, I'm not saying anything new. That's it. The digital products and services is the way to go. People want to have more safety while at the same time not having like so much contact. We see it in the retail stores where the retail workers are quitting the physical stores. They're reducing their spaces. Any place you walk out, you see that the retail spaces are shrinking. Completely new channels of delivering products and services, something that was unthinkable for like even a year or two ago. This now becoming a new norm, from the food delivery to the package delivery and so on and so forth. Now, in the corporate world, we see a complete shift towards the cloud technology. One of the units of our company focuses on the cloud technology, and I can tell you this was the unit that was busiest during the last year because everyone realized that, you know, they need to have their operations in the cloud. Flattened structure versus hierarchy. So this also has become extremely important during COVID. Those companies who had flat hierarchies, those who had connected employees, those who had their strong culture had a lot easier time surviving through the times when you couldn't be together, right? You could not force people. So people would just want to be working, want to be connected, and so on and so forth. And the last bucket is completely new ways of working. We now decide our own working hours, we decide our working location, and we also know that we need to have the shared information versus hoarded. So a very interesting shift is happening and how the company is reacting, and who are the ones who are struggling, and who are the ones that are coming into this space and saying, yes, this is an opportunity, but not just an opportunity. We have a strong enough culture that we can sustain this, and we can actually come out of this on a stronger side. So this also shows the shift in values. I think more and more we're seeing words such as humanity, compassion, community, engagement. And a few years ago, this would not have been possible. So the value of the company would need to have a very hardcore KPIs and the numbers. And, you know, if you would come and say, well, what about all these other pillars? They would say, well, but how do we measure it? And look at the conversation of every company. They are talking about the new things. And this was something that was there for us from the very beginning. So we did not have to adjust, we did not have to shift, we did not have to motivate our employees when they had to stay at home and be isolated because the culture was already there, right? And I call it from cash-driven to purpose-driven. And I included here the picture of I think this was still like a couple of years ago. Now the company is double the size, and you see that you grow if you do the right things the right way. Then your company grows. So now I think what is next for us and how it is all coming together. So there is a term which is called BCorp, certified BCorp. There are a number of companies that are going through this auditing process and becoming certified. And these are businesses, and again, this is a definition that meet high standards of social environmental performance, transparency, legal accountability to balance profit and purpose. For us, this is a natural evolution to come to this step. This is something that we have been already doing. And for us, it really is just to now formalize it, right? So this guy in the middle, that's our CEO. And at the beginning of this year, he stepped down as a CEO, and he's now himself leading the process of turning Pixas into a certified BCorp organization. And there are those several requirements that you need to go through. But you know, this goes back to walking the talk when CEO himself says, look, I now want to bring back to my company, to my community, what I've learned, the work, and I am stepping down as the CEO, and I'm running something else, and I'm giving spot to somebody else in the company, right? So it's very powerful. And, you know, this is, you noticed I did not talk at all about, you know, our services or what we do. And, you know, we do many things from e-commerce to AI to cybersecurity and cloud infrastructure. And usually this is never the first slide when we are selling. This is probably slide number, whatever, 5 or 7 or 9. So this is also a change, just throwing there a kind of sharing experience. When you are doing the sales pitches, you don't have to start with the what. It's a lot more powerful to start with why, and then people really would listen to the what. I mean, I'm sure you've listened, you've heard Simon Sinek's the book, the video, and he just explains it there, right? The companies that follow the why, those are the ones that stand out. And very recently, I read the biography of Chuck Finney. I don't know if anybody knows him. He is essentially, yeah, he was and still was a billionaire, but he's not because he gave it all away. So this is the man who had more money than the Rockefellers and many others. This is the man who built the whole duty-free empire. And he had the idea that you need to give while living. You know, this is his phrase that, you know, that you should use your wealth to help people. So, you know, it's a brilliant read. And, you know, he's rebuilt the whole educational system in Ireland. He's built the campuses across the world, and he wanted to like do good. And that's it. When you do good, you look good. So I also wanted to share this. And I think we are now, we're coming to the Q&A. I will be happy to connect for friendships, partnerships. If you want to discuss any sustainable projects, this is my contact information. Happy to speak. And maybe now we can kick it off for questions or comments or thoughts. I hope I also made you like provoke some thoughts and made you think in slightly different way.
Thank you, Anna. I would like to invite, as it's a relatively small group, I would like to invite people to actually speak up. There are not many questions in the chat. There were a few thoughts shared while you were speaking about certain things. Yeah, so maybe one thought that I have right now is, first of all, this is a wonderful feel-good presentation. Thank you very much for that. And also the thought about, it's about the why, not about the what. It makes me think of, I was preparing the session that we will have this afternoon at 4:30 with Philip Westerlund. The same message comes through there as well. He did a startup and found out as a conclusion that it's not about the product, it's about the meaning of it. And so I really find that interesting, that in two very different talks, because he really speaks about environmental impact and sustainability, we find a parallel. We find, you know, there's like a red ribbon going through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, this is also something we all realized while sitting at homes last year, right? Like what was important, and the things that came out were the why. Those what are the things that would make you continue getting up from the bed and keep going, and those were the things that you loved, your passion, the compassion, the empathy, the desire to help others, be it your family or your company or your coworkers. Those were the things that made us go through those tough times, and when you apply them in your work, then it's powerful.
Yeah.
Anna, Mark de Krok hier. Very interesting presentation. But at a certain moment, at a certain slide, you said, yeah, of course, you need to keep in mind the time cost scope. Besides, how do you keep balance? I think it's a very interesting approach that you say, okay, our mindset, our attitude is not, as you said, not cash driven, but purpose driven. But at a certain moment, you need to balance between the two, I suppose. It's not that you can say, oh, okay, it's a free ride, and if we lose money, well, don't worry. I think at the end, the bookkeeper will come back and say, is it, if I understand you correctly, it's by having this attitude, this way of thinking, that the rest comes by itself, or is it exaggerated?
No, of course, you cannot just say, okay, let's cut out everything that doesn't feel good and focus on the things that we want to do, and the rest will come. No. What is the most important thing in the work that we pay attention to is the quality. So we are IT technology company, we provide tech services. So we ensure that quality of work is exceptional. So when we do engage with a client, we know that I'm yet to think of a work that was a POC and didn't go into the full scope, that would depend on us, right? They always say, okay, the quality work was exceptional, communication was exceptional, those things were exceptional. And then, that's the first thing. They have been situations where the projects have been really not the way that, not fitting all these parameters. You would try to go and change it. You would try to go change your relationship, your communication, the way it is. And there have been situations that we had to just draw a line and say, okay, no, this is not the right space for us. We do not want to burn our people. We say we put people before profits. Now this is the project that burns our people. They have to work like literally 24/7, which is completely fine when you are in a certain crunch mode and you are going for the go live or anything, but it cannot be something that's expected, right? And that's where we would make a difference. The interesting thing is, so we are an ecosystem of about 10 companies, and it always is when one unit struggles, the other unit helps. So that so far also has been how we are able to sometimes come in and say, okay, no, let's not do this. But having the quality at the forefront of everything you do, that's what actually makes the difference. Okay. And then if you are also have the quality and you have competent people, they do know how to do the estimates. They do know how much it will take and how much it will cost. So you don't have to go back and then justify yourself. So you do track it in a lot better way as well.
Okay. Interesting. Absolutely.
But thank you for the question. Thank you for the feedback.
But putting people first, Anna, and preferring projects that have a positive people impact does not necessarily mean you do it for free, right?
Of course,
it doesn't mean that you don't do it for. I mean.
No. Of course, no. All the projects. Yeah, absolutely. All those project examples that I was showing, from the COVID chatbot to the dengue to et cetera, they're all paid. What we do for free is the CSR initiative. So the 50-year plus program, the internship for the underprivileged groups, those are free, but the projects are not. Yeah.
Willem mentioned something in the chats around academic and educational outreach activities, giving training in project management to unemployed people. Is that something that your company does, Willem, or are you talking about the PMI initiatives? Or
it's the PMI initiative. That's completely not budget related. It's all about purpose. It's people giving back to society. So, and that generates a lot of positive energy because we managed to get I think about 6-7 volunteers to do the trainings. So that means that if the purpose is there, people will invest.
yes, very
Yes.
true.
Yeah, and in our case, we have very strong collaboration with the universities. So a lot of developers or people who work there, they are lecturing themselves. So they're participating in a lot of like work with the universities, because that also goes back to put your people first, because we want them to continue their learning. We want them to continue their things. And it's not a requirement, you know, going back to the point about the requirements, it's not a requirement. They love doing it. And that's how they stay competent, and that's how they stay relevant.
Mm-hmm. And it's also a win-win because the volunteers get the experience of teaching, and the students get the experience of getting project management knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I take it that you're one of the 7 volunteers of the Belgian chapter with the Education Foundation.
Yes, yes.
Congrats. Very good. Great.
I have a last question for you, Anna. Is Pyxis kind of adopting like let's say the Google mindset, meaning that you can give your employers some free time to think about ideas that have an impact on the community?
We've had it from day one. So if Google is adopting it now, we've
No,
yeah. You know,
just took it as an example.
And we are not Google, you know, and don't claim to be with like, you know, 400 people. But yeah, no, absolutely. It's the people can take time. And when I was mentioning about the sustainable committee, they negotiate with their supervisors, or they bring the proposal to their supervisors that for the next, let's say, X period of time, they want to get involved in those projects. This will take this much time, and then that time they work less. So that's the way the app was developed. That way they can go give those trainings and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Wonderful. I have no more questions in the chat. I've posted the PDO code once more in case anyone didn't see it before. I think with that, unless there's any more questions, we can probably thank Anna once more and thank the audience. Thank the audience for being there, for being at so many different sessions this week. I hope you're really enjoying it, and keep watching the next ones. And you can still hop in your car and come to Luxembourg for the evening. Okay, thank you, Anna. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Very
much appreciated. I enjoyed it. And yeah, thank you for this opportunity.
Wonderful.
Perfect.